Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Lettermen Live, presented by Wendy's. It's a Rose Bowl edition of the program. It's Tim May, the 41-year vet. It's Spencer Holbrook. We are a couple days away from heading out to sunny Southern California, but first, we had to get a Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's out to the people. Of course, there you go, Tim, LACC. We're going to Los Angeles, California. There you go. Lettermen Live, of course, is presented by Wendy's. You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Because Wendy's new spicy nugs or saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey, barbecue, garlic, parm, with the real heat seekers, the ball knowers. They try the spicy ghost pepper on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare you to try those. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's, a participating U.S.
I nug.
Wendy's. You do nug, Tim. If you nug, I nug. Tim, scale of 1 to 10. This is, I don't remember how many Rose Bowls you've covered. Scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for this particular Rose Bowl?
Pretty excited. I mean, rematch. It kind of like makes true to a certain extent. Most of our expectations for this season was it Ohio State and Oregon were going to play at least twice.
Yeah.
I thought they'd play 3 times in the championship game in the finale, but the all-seeing, all-knowing college football playoff committee, they got to know what they were doing from the standpoint of knowing that Ohio State and Oregon had a chance to meet in the quarterfinals. And I think that's bogus, but it is what it is at this point, because Ohio State, when you looked at it, you can make those college football playoff pairings any way you want, even though they want to talk about this, that, and the other, the machinations. But the fact that it was obvious from the pairings that the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State would play Oregon in the Rose Bowl, that's unfortunate, because these two teams ought to be at least in the semifinals. And by that, I mean, I'm not taking anything for granted. I mean, Ohio State, Tennessee, who knows, could have pulled the upset. But my point is, it's too bad this is a quarterfinal game, because this has all the makings of being a semifinal. And really, maybe these are the top 2 teams left in the college football playoff running into each other. When you really, I think you agree with me, I don't know, Spence, when you really size up seasons and the way these teams played at certain times in this season, I think these are the top 2 teams. But, we'll see. Neither one of them may make the finals.
Well, I think they're the top 2 teams right now because, I mean, as weird as it is to say for this Ohio State team, it might be the healthiest. They might be the 2 healthiest teams. Notre Dame is now without one of its 2 best defenders, Riley Mills, on the interior. You don't really trust Penn State to be in that upper crust with Notre Dame, Oregon, Ohio State. Georgia is playing a backup quarterback who's never started a game and looked horrendous in the SEC championship game.
And Georgia has not been great defensively all season either. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we don't really know what we're going to get out of the Dogs. And then Texas is now, having to, on the fly, replace 2 offensive line starters who got banged up in that win over Clemson. And you don't know how much you really trust, which is weird to say because it's Steve Sarkisian, how much you trust that offense. So, when you put the context around it, right now, I think these are probably the 2 best teams in this tournament. It's a shame that they're going to have to play in the quarterfinals, but you know what? That's what happens when you mess around against your rival.
Yeah.
These 2 teams should be playing in the final or in the semifinal, and instead they're playing in the quarterfinal because Ohio State messed around with its rival.
Well, that's true, but then past that, when you make the pairings and you see that the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee is going to play, I'm talking about when you made the committee made the pairings and made them 8 and 9, like I said, joined them at the hip like 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before, and said, well, these aren't going to change, this 8 and 9 or this 6 and 7. Of course, if it had been Ohio State 7 and 8, Ohio State and Tennessee 7 and 8, we'd be talking about a totally different situation. But when you put a team that Ohio State beat ahead of Ohio State in the rankings, which was Penn State, that's what you get, right? So I guess my point is, I'm thinking fans are getting robbed of a colossal possible collision in the semifinals or the finals. That's all I'm saying. And what it is, I guess the flip side of it is for the Big Ten, at least one team's going to be in the semifinals. Did you pause?
So yeah, that's Tim. That's the thing is like Ohio State or Oregon, obviously Big Ten. We're still in that phase of I'm trying to get used to Oregon not being in the Pac-12, and then the fact that they're playing this game in the Rose Bowl makes it even more difficult to comprehend that Oregon is in the Big Ten.
Big Ten Rose Bowl. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, well, we saw Ohio State Oregon coming for sure, and we've seen it before.
I'm talking about 10 years ago.
Yeah, but we've seen this before in the Rose Bowl. Hi, Chip Kelly. But anyway, I think the Big Ten is guaranteed to have two teams in the semifinal because I think Penn State's going to take care of business against Boise. So you're going to have two Big Ten teams, and then you may have two SEC teams. So we may get all Big Ten, all SEC. But you also could get like a Notre Dame thrown in there. You could have, Arizona State could upset Texas. And, so we'll see. But obviously we talk Ohio State here, which is why we're going to dive into the Rose Bowl. This is actually the last Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's before the Rose Bowl. So we will get into some keys here, just some light keys because, the game being on a Wednesday kind of does throw a little bit of a wrench into everything, Tim.
Dude, it's almost like I've got jet lag. I mean, I'm trying to keep in my head what day it is and what day it is on the game week calendar. You know what I mean? How we used to go through those machinations. But Wednesday just doesn't feel right. It's just like I don't know how to explain it to people. Of course, I'm 70, so I'm stuck in my ways, but not really. It's just a Wednesday, But the flip side of it is, it's coming upon us faster than you think, because the other thing is we're not going through our usual bowl schedule, just media wise. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm flying out. Well, so far I'm flying out late tonight. Southwest has a delayed departure for my flight leaving Columbus, which has delayed it past when arriving at my connection when my connection is leaving. So I may be in St. Louis for the next 4 days, who knows? But my point is everything is just discombobulated to a certain extent. But the players I know are on a schedule, the good thing is there's always, you put back in your head, there's always a week between Christmas and New Year's. So you can get, you can fall back on that kind of schedule. But it's been an interesting exercise for yours truly, because we usually are out there a week before the game, right? Enjoying whatever is going on there. I remember the last time Ohio State went to the Rose Bowl for the Jackson Smith and Jigba CJ Stroud extravaganza. It rained the first 3 days. They even had to practice in SoFi Stadium. The teams did to get their practice in. Now it's supposed to be really nice out there, whatever days we get there.
Yeah. Well, whatever days we get there, I certainly won't complain about 70 degrees. It's gonna be nice. What is this, Tim? How many Rose Bowls is this for you?
I don't know. I just noticed I had my head on crooked like I was hip. I think I figured out 5. Because when I first started covering the beat in 1984, Ohio State became the first team in Big Ten history to win the Big Ten outright with 2 losses on its Big Ten schedule, and ended up going and playing USC, got beat. Chris Carter had his coming out party in that game. Chris Spillman had a great game, and they were both freshmen. But and I'm going, hey, this is cool. I mean, I've started covering Ohio State. I'm going to be going to the Rose Bowl every other year. Ohio State didn't go back to the Rose Bowl until 1996, And so the ones from then to now, obviously I've been to too, but I've got some little rituals. I mean, I've been to LA several times, many times since then too, but I've got a little ritual I was out there for a week being an assistant for a volunteer assistant at for the U.S. Open at the Los Angeles Country Club there off Wilshire, and had a great time and never rented a car. So you can get around L.A. With the mass transit. But I digress. Bottom line is I have these little rituals where I always like to have dinner at least one night somewhere in Manhattan Beach, because I really like, even though it's crowded as hell now, I really like that area. And come to find out, Nicole Sheeran, the the new young lady who works for Channel 10, she grew up there. And so we were exchanging where to go, news on where to go. But I always used to write a story the day after the Rose Bowl on the highest parking lot at Pepperdine University in Malibu. Sit up there in my car, hoping I'd charge my battery on my computer. And it's cool, Spence, because you're sitting up there and here's the sky, and coming down it's hitting the Pacific out there, and it looks all in one. I mean, it looks like it's really a cool thing. Now, they dodged a wildfire again, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So my point is, I've always enjoyed being out on the West Coast, but man, is it crowded out there anymore, brother. The traffic's ridiculous when you're driving around. But I know you're looking forward to it. The Rose Bowl setting will not disappoint for you, first-time traveler, at least to the Rose Bowl. I know you've been around, but the Rose Bowl setting, like we've talked about many times in the third quarter when the sun's setting over the San Gabriel Mountains. And right now the long-range forecast calls for partly cloudy skies, which means it'll be perfect, is a sight to behold at least once in your life if you're a big-time college football fan like myself.
So the setting is one thing, and when we get out there, we'll talk a little bit more about the setting, because I think it's the perfect setting for the matchup between Ohio State and Oregon, because of the Big Ten Pac-12 ties, because these two teams are now conference rivals, and I think that you are seeing a very quickly budding rivalry happen here. It's budding very quickly. It's like a rosebud, but it's happening pretty dang quickly, with the way that Ohio State and Oregon recruit against each other, with the way that they compete against each other. This is the second matchup this year. It's the third matchup that Ryan Day's had against the Ducks. I assume we're going to see plenty more of them, not next year, but maybe next year if they're both in the Big Ten championship game. So and then in the CFP, I think they'll meet quite often. So, it's one of these things where, Ohio State, Michigan means so much to so many people. Ohio State, Penn State has taken on a life of its own. We'd like to welcome you to the third Big Ten rivalry for Ohio State. It's definitely going to be Ohio State, Oregon. So that's exciting, man. And so to have this game be played in that setting for this is just, you couldn't ask for more. And the Rose Bowl is a permanent quarterfinal. It's never going to be a semifinal until they switch this thing up. Correct. Because, the Rose Bowl committee and all those the fancy, colorful suits that manage these bowls want this thing on New Year's Day because of the parade and the pomp.
Hey, good for them.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying that it's bad, but the setting is one thing. But I want to get into the matchups here because, again, this is the last Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's before the game, because we'll talk either Thursday or Friday after the game for the next Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's. Tim, what's the biggest? I think it's pretty obvious, but what's the biggest matchup here that we've got to see, for Ohio State to have some success against Oregon?
Okay, well, clarify. Are you talking about man to man, or are you talking about offense versus defense? What are you talking about when you?
I'm talking about
them in all kinds of sizes and colors.
I'm talking about the Ohio State secondary against these Oregon wide receivers. It's the most important matchup on the
Okay, well, you go ahead then.
I mean, that was kind of my launching point. I figured that's where you were going to go, so I'll just go there instead.
Well, yeah, but you can negate that. You know what I mean? Just score more points. Go ahead.
Well, and a shootout is one way to do that. I'm fully aware of that. I know that.
Hey, wait a minute. Let's start with that. Both of these teams are capable. I think on paper this looks more almost like a defensive, intensive game. That doesn't mean you're going to hold a team to fewer than 20 points, but there's got to be some plays made defensively. But this bowl game has the potential to be a 30s, just like it was in the first edition back on October the 12th. I mean, both of these teams have firepower, and now Ohio State appears not to be reluctant to use it after the Tennessee game, right? You understand what I'm saying? Because of the the memories of that Michigan game will linger forever. Just the memories of it. Doesn't mean you're a bad team, but you had a bad day from a strategery standpoint. But go ahead into your first thing. I just wanted to interrupt in the fact of I would not be surprised to see this game go into the 30s with both teams because everything's on the line. Yeah,
but I mean, the biggest matchup here is obviously Ohio State's corners against these Oregon receivers because of the way Oregon's receivers abused them the last time. Jordan Hancock, which I forgot about this. I rewatched the game yesterday for the umpteenth time. Jordan Hancock called for pass interference late in the fourth quarter to put Oregon down on the goal line on a third down, where Oregon would have had a 55-yard field goal to take the lead with 4 minutes to go, and Ohio State would have been able to get into a 4-minute offense to go try to win the game. Instead, Jordan Hancock gets flagged for a pass interference on like the 5-yard line, and Oregon moves up first down. Next play, Jordan James almost takes it in for a touchdown. Of course, Ohio State gets that goal line stand. But, I mean, even a guy like Jordan Hancock, who's kind of steady Eddie in this secondary, like, no penalties, no big plays given up. He, struggled at times against this Oregon secondary. Denzel Burke obviously had the most forgettable game of his career, allowed 7 receptions to either Evan Stewart or Tez Johnson. One of the deep balls was to Tez Johnson for a touchdown. 7 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, the worst game of Denzel Burke's career. Corners have bad games. I think about the best corners that you've ever watched. Like think about like Champ Bailey, who I think is one of the best corners I've ever seen play. Jeff Okuda, even when he was at Ohio State, who was just a phenomenal corner. Denzel Ward. These guys all have bad games. They do.
Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, exactly. Gary and Conley, like all of these first round corners that Ohio State's produced, they've all had a bad game. Denzel's just happened to come on the biggest stage in the entire sport all season, 2 versus 3 out in Autzen in prime time, for everything. So Denzel had his struggles. Davison Igbinosun has had his struggles throughout the year. And then even, like I said, even Jordan Hancock had some struggles in that Oregon game. It's going to come down to whether these corners can cover. But I also think, as Jim Knowles has talked about in 3 years that he's been here, coverage and rush work together, rush and coverage work together. The pass rush is much improved from where it was the first 6 games of the season. It's definitely more diverse and more creative than it was in that Oregon game. The pass rush has got to be really good in order for the corners to have more time to cover these guys, or less time to have to cover these guys, if you will. Sorry, that was a nice little slip up by me. And then, the corners have to be really good to allow the pass rush to do its job. And we did not see that at all. I think they had 1 sack in that Oregon game. It came from Caden Curry. Other than that, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau were complete. For lack of a better term, they were non-factors in that game. And
I don't know. Tuimoloau made a good tackle to force that field goal that they keep Oregon to keep.
I'm talking about a touchdown. I'm talking about in the pass rush. Those two were basically non-factors. And so
True.
They've got to be better, but also the corners have to be better. And I think it is absolutely 100% this Ohio State pass defense, just as a whole, which includes the pass rush, against this Oregon passing attack. It's the best offensive line Ohio State will have seen all year. They've already seen them once.
There you go.
And
they've got maybe the best center Ohio State will have seen this year.
So, Tennessee's center was really good too. But anyway,
so
I just think this pass defense for Ohio State has to be so, so good against Oregon. And it has been since the Oregon game, but also the receivers that that Ohio State has played, they've kind of stunk. So you've got to bring it here on Wednesday.
I think I said these are the 2 best teams in the country. I think I prefaced with that, ladies and gentlemen. And I was going to have a nugget there in between. But, Oregon's a damn good football team. Oregon is gettable. Ohio State got beat by Oregon 32-31, not 32-11. Wisconsin had Oregon right where they wanted them, except Wisconsin, I think, didn't Luke fire his offensive coordinator the next week because they couldn't get a first down in the fourth quarter. He didn't like the play calling in that game. Braden Locke, of all people, seemed to be having a decent game, and then all of a sudden, Oregon shut him down. But Oregon is definitely gettable. Look what Penn State's offense. Look what it did against Oregon. I'm talking about offensively, but then defensively, they've got all kinds of weapons, and so does Ohio State. So, the frustration with Ohio State not being able to get what I'd call a legitimate sack. Part of that was due maybe to the Ohio State plan. The other part was due to Dylan Gabriel is quite a slippery character. It's why he was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. I wasn't the only guy that had Dylan Gabriel third on my Heisman Trophy ballot, obviously. And then when he scrambles, you have to keep in mind he's deadly throwing the ball when he's scrambling. And the one thing that Ohio State didn't do was contain him. We talk about not getting sacks, but you don't want this guy running around on you either. And by being too aggressive on getting to the pocket, you don't want to run by him. You don't want the ends to run by him in their pass rush, because then he'll slip out and get 5, 8, 10 yards, and boom, they got a first down, and they're still rocking and rolling down the track. So, they present a problem for you. And the main key is, like you said, you've got to get initial coverage on your receivers, and maybe get a Cody Simon involved. Cody Simon's become quite the blitzer, for example. We all know that Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs, if they decide, Ohio State decides to employ them more in the blitz game, which means get after the quarterback, they can be quite effective. So it's going to be interesting to see which way Jim Knowles goes from a strategic standpoint, because you're going to give up a little to get a little. And in my opinion, I don't care if a team has 0 sacks if the quarterback has less than 200 yards passing. There are ways to contain things. And so we'll see where they go. Now, they've got Tez Johnson, a healthy Tez Johnson, which they really didn't have the first time they played Ohio State. I mean, he was banged up, and so we'll see how much that enhances their attack, because they've got two receivers that can beat you today, no matter what corner you put out there. And but Ohio State's got 3 corners, I think, that are very capable, along with, like you said, Jordan Hancock and Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs to play games with in the secondary. But Ohio State learned a big lesson then. You got to keep somebody over the top, man, against a team like this. A team like this is going to make some plays. They're going to make some big plays because they got too many good guys not to make a big play here and there, and hither and yon, and whatever other cliche you can throw in there from the 19th century. But I'm curious to see how much more effective, like you pointed out. Ohio State had a real, I don't know if they had one of these great come to meet. I don't want to use the Lord's name in vain, but the old saying, come to Jesus, one of these old come to football meetings after the Oregon game, like they did after the Michigan game. But clearly they've been much better, much more effective defensively. And, but they can't go in, as you heard Cody Simon say after that game, the game at Oregon, they were stagnant at times defensively. It's almost like they were calling the same things, or, Oregon was just catching them on the flip-flop. And that's the thing. You've got to be creative if you're Jim Knowles, and diverse, but you don't want to get crazy, because the main thing is you want to keep Oregon in front of you in some form or fashion at all costs. Other than all that, I have no opinion.
Well, 3 things, but they're all quick things. The teams that have made Oregon drive the field have reaped the rewards. Dylan Gabriel's had a few red zone turnovers this season. So make them drive the length of the field. Ohio State made them drive the length of the field, got him inside the 5-yard line. Dylan Gabriel threw a pass off of Cody Simon's ass, and it was on 4th and goal. And Ohio State got the ball to the 3-yard line and was driving to take a 2-score lead. And instead, Will Howard had that ball go off his hands. So, like, this team knows the rewards. They also stopped Oregon with 2 minutes to go inside the 5-yard line from scoring a touchdown. This team knows the rewards of getting this Oregon team to drive the length of the field. It does. Against really good defenses, this Oregon team has struggled to score touchdowns in the red zone. So
Wisconsin, same game.
Yep, that's it. That's one thing. Number 2, the Cody Simon stagnant thing is interesting in hindsight, because those first 6 games, they were just running like a very basic form of Jim Knowles defense. Since then, they've just little by little ratcheted things up. And against Tennessee, it was probably the most creative it's been, the way they used Caleb Downs as that third high safety, but also having him almost in the box while Jordan Hancock was able to go play safety a little bit. They've gotten creative in the ways that they align those safeties. They've gotten creative in the ways Cody Simon comes up through the middle and allows Jack Sawyer to get free. I thought Tyleik Williams looked the healthiest he'd been in a while against Tennessee. Now, this Oregon team's, like I said, the best offensive line they face. It's a different beast from what Tennessee provided. Tennessee's offensive line is kind of a paper tiger. But,
hey, they beat Alabama, which claims it should have been in the playoff.
Yeah, sure, whatever. The third thing, though, The third thing, though, is this Oregon team, um, for as good as it's been passing the ball, it is so good on the ground with Jordan James.
Hey, can you pause it for just a second?
Yeah. All that's to say, Tim, is like we can talk about the pass defense till we're blue in the face, but the way that Ohio State handled the tempo and till you're blue in the face, the way that Ohio State handled the tempo of Tennessee and the way that it handled the power run game of Tennessee, along with stopping that passing attack, which I think Oregon's more diverse in what it does offensively for the passing game.
Wait a minute, is that what they call a power run game in the Southeastern Conference? Is that what they call it?
Yeah. It gives me confidence that Ohio State will do pretty well against this Oregon run game because now it has experience not only against a spread running attack, but it has experience against a tempoed rushing attack. And the best way to get a run game out of sorts
that's a good point.
Is to get a lead and not let them run the ball. And so,
correct.
If Ohio State comes out swinging against a team that could be, and I'm not saying Oregon's going to come in rusty, could be a little rusty, it won't surprise me if they jump out to an early lead. And then Oregon will have a little bit more trouble establishing the run. And then you can start to do some things against the pass. So there's formulas here for Ohio. There's different formulas for Ohio State to be better against the Oregon passing attack. That's to say, though, they have to be better against the Oregon passing attack.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, anybody can see. I mean, Tennessee was banged up at its wide receiver core. Yeah. This is a much more lethal wide receiver core Ohio State's going to be facing in Oregon than Tennessee presented. I mean, they beat Tennessee in a lot of ways worse than they beat Purdue. I mean, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, they beat offensively, they were in essence, as successful as they were against Purdue. So a lot of things about Tennessee were presented to me, you, and others, which were, false. That was not a great, super deep, talented football team like I thought it was portrayed as because it beat mighty Alabama. Do you agree with me? I mean, I was actually kind of disappointed in what Tennessee tried to do offensively. I didn't think Sampson was going to come in and run all over Ohio State. I think we said that, in the days leading up to it because Ohio State has had great success usually against good running backs or purportedly good running backs. And history will show you that. I mean, goes well past, Ohio State just kind of, for some reason or another, that's a part of Ohio State's DNA is getting after a highly touted running back. Did we know Sampson was Sampson banged up before the game? Did he get banged up during the game? That was never clear to anybody, basically for certain. But he sure didn't show up. It's like I said, it's like the Sampson in the Bible. It's like he got his hair cut, at the wrong time. And we all know what that led to. So, but Ohio State should feel good about the way it manhandled Tennessee. It scored 10 points with its first team off. Well, it scored 10 points against Ohio State's first team defense. And Ohio State, it just scored another touchdown. If Ohio State hadn't had that quote lull in the second quarter, and part of that was because of a ridiculously orchestrated interception in the end zone, by Tennessee, that game could have been a lot worse. So the challenge is you kind of put the last game out of your mind if you're Ohio State, because this is a total different challenge. Oregon has a very talented running back in James. We all saw that. He runs really hard also. And then you've got to have a secondary that's got to keep in mind they've got receivers that can take it to the house on any play. If you have a slip or if you have a slip mentally, they can take it to the house on any play. They're not afraid to run crossing routes at high speed, just little things that set them off. And then all of a sudden they incorporate their tight end into the passing game. That was a big pass to the tight end in one play where Denzel Burke ended up man-to-man with him. Got a big first down for Oregon in that game, as I recall, just because they lined up in like a power look, and all of a sudden they're throwing to their tight end on a drag, and he gets the first down. So there are all kinds of ways Oregon will try to beat you. And then of course we saw them. It's not cheating if the rules say if you do this, this is the penalty and you pay the penalty. But the slipping the 12th man onto the field, you thought the 12th man was Austin Stadium crowd, but no, they actually played with the 12th man once,
Yeah.
and kind of cagey the way they do that and kind of beat their chest afterward. But it was, I don't know. That was obviously the NCAA thought it was, quote, cheating because they changed the rule right after that, right? But yeah, so there are all kinds of problems that Oregon will present from Oregon's offense will present going against Ohio State's defense that Tennessee never came close to presenting. I think you agree, don't you?
Yeah, but I'm not going to relitigate that 12th man thing because that, But yeah, there are plenty of ways that they will that they can beat you with it. No, I'm not. I'm just not going there. We talked about
it's not a law; it's a rule.
Yeah, well, we talked about it way too much, and Dan Lanning in the aftermath said that he did it on purpose, and there's no way they did it on purpose.
He did do it on purpose, obviously.
I will never believe that as long as I live. But anyway, what I will believe in,
you have to keep the myth going. Go ahead.
You got to stand for something in this life, Tim. I stand for Wendy's Saucy Nugs because you've had them dipped in sauce, but you haven't had them covered in sauce. And if you haven't by December 27th, what are you doing? Like, go to your local Wendy's and get your nugs dipped in or covered in sauce. Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love. You see in the drive-thru that picture of them. They turn them up to 11 with the new Saucy Nugs. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try that spicy ghost pepper on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. That's 11 different ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's, a participating U.S. Wendy's. My Grove City Wendy's is actually participating in it, the Saucy Nugs. Chef's kiss. Anyway, Tim.
Hey, by the way, I told you I like the Cobb salad and a 6-pack of nugs to go with it.
I don't believe in Cobb salads, but I'm sure Wendy's is good.
Wow. That's all I got to say. Wendy's has the best Cobb salad of any fast food place out there, and some restaurants.
The Cobb salad and the wedge salad. I don't believe in those two as
they don't have wedge salad. But go ahead.
No, but my two salad pet peeves are Cobb salads and wedge salads. And we'll talk about that. Maybe on an off-season show, we'll do a salad show. But anyway, my saucy take for the week, Tim,
is pepper sauce.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I think Oregon's got defensive problems. The way that Penn State attacked Oregon and got receivers open, despite having kind of bad receivers, and the way Penn State used its running backs in the passing game, I think Ryan Day and Chip Kelly were probably watching that and they were saying, that's interesting. Now Oregon's going to adjust because Oregon just watched the spread them out attack that Ohio State deployed against Tennessee. Oregon knows that Ohio State has got some wrinkles, and Oregon knows that Ohio State watched that Penn State game. But Ohio State also knows that Oregon's going to adjust to those adjustments, and then Ohio State's going to have to make adjustments off that. So
you still got to make the plays. Go ahead now.
I know that, but we can't see the plays until Wednesday, and my job is to talk about the pregame. So but anyway,
can I interrupt you real quick? Are you backhandedly going to an argument of why James Franklin should be relieved of duty? Because where's that offense been?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying that Oregon's defense showed something in the negative that I hadn't seen all year against Penn State, and I just wonder if Ohio State can replicate some of that success. Penn State had 37 points. A lot of it was playing from behind, I will say.
Yeah.
But, the urgency is there no matter what for Ohio State because it's a college football playoff game. So you should always be playing like you're behind.
Yep.
The other part of that, and I guess that's my saucy take for the week, I think that Oregon has some issues. The other part of that, though, Tim, is this Oregon defensive line is so freaking good. It is so good. Mateo Uiagalelei has come into his own this year. He dominated the Ohio State game. He and Derek Harmon. They now have Jordan Birch back, and he is just a ridiculous, robot for a college football player. He's a very good player. So, Ohio State's going to have its hands full blocking up front, but if you can block this Oregon front just enough, and Ohio State did some really creative things to just be able to block Tennessee enough last weekend. If they can block Oregon enough to allow Will Howard to see the field a little bit, I think there's some you can get some good things from this Oregon defense, but also that defensive line makes it really difficult on you if you have any lapses on your offensive line.
Hey, let's not call these guys the purple people eaters or the steel curtain, because like, how many points did Penn State score on Oregon?
Yeah, 37.
Yeah. I mean, Oregon can be had. I mean, it's defensively, it's, this isn't talking about some secret. I mean, they gave up 31 to Ohio State, and Ohio State shot itself in the foot a couple of times. And Ohio State was going clickety-clack right down the track on that last drive until pass interference call discombobulated everything. I mean, Will Howard had a pretty damn good day against Oregon the first time they played him. I know Jordan Birch didn't play. He walked out there and warmed up, kind of to scare everybody, but he didn't play. So, but my point is, this is a talented Oregon team, but are they a shutdown defense? No. Ohio State shut down Tennessee defensively, with the exception of one quarter, and even that was exacerbated by the fact that a roughing the passer call was called against Kenyatta Jackson, which the more I look at that, the more bogus it is. The more bogus it got, not the more legitimate it got. That's what happens when you get ACC refs calling things. But that's an argument for another day. What?
I hate to break it to you, Tim. You're not going to believe the crew for this Rose Bowl.
ACC? Well, of course, because they're out of it. They can send crews hither and yon. There's another 19th century reference. That's too bad, right? Because, but then again, they let people get away with almost everything else in that game. I mean, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, their ability to break clear of the shackles, which are perpetual holding machines, that how many times have we seen a holding call against either one of them, even though there is blatant, obvious video and photographic evidence of guys being held, especially JT Tuimoloau, on almost every play. This isn't belly aching. Just go watch the video. So that'll be interesting. I didn't realize it was an ACC crew until just now. But like I said, they have no conflict of interest for the rest of this playoff since they were eliminated. But wow, this changed my whole tenor, because I thought they were past those guys. But then again, it's just stupid in 2024 that there are different referee crews in the country instead of one referee clearinghouse that you go through, instead of Big Ten refs or SEC refs or Big 12 refs, or God forbid Pac-12 refs. Remember back in the day?
Yeah.
But I forgot where I was even going. All I'm saying is, I think this is a very talented Oregon defense, but I say scored 31 of them the first time and had a chance to score more. Self-inflicted wounds cost them from scoring more in that game. So, I think Ohio State's defense, in my opinion, has improved dramatically compared to Oregon's defense from the first time they played. Jordan Birch, we'll see. You know what Josh Fryer said when I asked him about Jordan Birch that first time, and that was before we knew Jordan Birch wasn't going to play. He's scary. How big he is, 6'8". The weight ranges from 300 to 400, depending on who you ask, but he has great athletic ability to go with it. That's something they did not have to deal with that first time around. So, yes, that's almost the biggest difference in their defense compared to the last time.
Yeah, and Ohio State's going to have to run the ball a lot better. They completely abandoned the run in the second half, despite having a lead in the second half. They were up 28-22, and it completely – or no, they – yeah.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah, they were up 28-22, and then completely abandoned the run.
Isn't it funny how much they abandoned the run, and then in Michigan game, they should have abandoned the run, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of the season so far, honestly. Like the two games, they abandoned the run, and then they wouldn't abandon the run. It's kind of the story of the season so far in the two losses. So
Smith can get open against anybody.
So Ohio State's got to be able to run the football a little bit and set up things, but also like they used the pass to set up the run against Tennessee, and in the second half they ran the ball extremely well. And I was really impressed with the way Travion Henderson ran in the gap scheme, the things that they did differently. I don't know if gap scheme is as easy to execute against this Oregon front as it is against the Tennessee front. And again, like you said, they're not the purple people eaters, but man, like this Oregon defense is, I think, much more athletic than what Tennessee showed with Derek Harmon, with Mateo Uiagalelei, with Jordan Birch. I like the Oregon linebackers. I think Jeffrey Boss is a really good player. The Buckeyes lost Josh Simmons at the end of the first quarter of that game. They lost
Yeah, I
their
was going
best
to say,
blocking.
get to that part of it. Yeah.
They lost their best blocking tight end on the first series of the game. Will Kazmarek, he's back. Josh Simmons obviously not back. I've been extremely impressed with the way that Donovan Jackson has carried himself against Abdul Carter. I know 4 pressures, 2 sacks, but that was Donovan's first ever start at left tackle. Then you flip it to the Tennessee game. Oh, actually, the Michigan game, I thought Donovan Jackson did a pretty good job against the Michigan defensive ends for everything that was wrong with that offensive attack. And then you go even further, James Pierce was kind of a non-factor. Well, actually, he wasn't kind of. He was absolutely a non-factor against Donovan Jackson and Josh Fryer. So this offensive – yeah, no kidding. So this offensive line's got to be really good against this really, really good Oregon front. And I think that's kind of the story of this game because, like, the two things we've covered now, Ohio State's defensive pass defense against Oregon, and then the ability for Ohio State to protect. If Ohio State can protect, we know what these receivers are. We know what Will Howard can do. We know what the running backs can do in the passing game. We know what they can do if you just give them a little tiny crease to get through in the run game. It's defend the pass and block up front. If you give Will Howard time to throw, I think Ohio State's got a really good chance to win this game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Ohio State's got, in my opinion, Oregon's got some weapons at wide receiver. I think Ohio State has more. And plus, you throw Will Kazmarek back into the mix now with G. Scott Jr. From a tight end standpoint. And, my favorite play was when Ohio State put 4 tight ends on the field and ran it right down Tennessee's throat there for that touchdown. Every touchdown's huge in a game like this. We all know that. Touchdowns are the gold currency. Field goals are the silver, And if you can't get one, you definitely want to get some jingling and get the other. But the bottom line is you want to score touchdowns. And like you said, the difference is going to come in the red zone, you do believe, because of Oregon's problems in the red zone for the most part all season long offensively, and Ohio State's success, with the exception of the Michigan game, in the red zone offensively this year. So it really comes down to basics, man. You're going to give up some things. Oregon is too damn good to not give up some things against their offense. And it's vice versa. Or Ohio State's too damn good offensively to not do some things offensively. Big play. Both of these have big play capability. And keeping that team in front of you, like we've talked about almost ad nauseum now on this video, is going to be part and parcel to making it happen, and also getting off the field. I think what Ohio State did better, even though Iamaleava, I like to say Iamaleava, even though it may be Iamaleava. Iamaleava, his scrambling kept several drives going for Tennessee, but ultimately didn't beat Ohio State. And they couldn't get any other weapons really launched against Ohio State on a consistent basis. The thing is, Dylan Gabriel is too cagey not to keep some drives going. I mean, he's really good. And he's a little bit of a short guy, so he kind of sneaks away from you sometimes. But the ability to contain him and also get pressure on him are two different challenges. And so we'll see how Ohio State tackles that, pardon the expression, compared to the way they did the last time they played. But that 27-yard run on a keeper off an option, I'm sure JT Tuimoloau has seen that play in his sleep, because that was really the backbreaker for Oregon, because you pretty much had them stopped on that particular drive. We're stymieing them, and boom, he scores a touchdown out of nowhere. 27-yard keeper by the quarterback. Those always are killers. I don't care if it's Thomas Lott running the Oklahoma wishbone. Those are always killers when a quarterback scores on a longish run. So those are Ohio State's challenges, because, boy, when you really look back on that first meeting, there were about 5 plays that really decided that game from the standpoint of, wow, you just can't let that happen. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And Denzel Burke knows which ones they are. So do the rest of the guys on the defense. And it was really funny because Jim Knowles made that comment, remember, a week and a half ago, when there was talk about the Ohio State defense being upset at the Ohio State offense for what went down in the Michigan game, and he urged his guys to grab an offensive player and pick him up, because everybody can look back on the Oregon game and see 4 or 5 defensive plays against Oregon, which didn't work out and caused that to be more of a game than maybe it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head there, and I think that's a good spot to end. We're not going to give any picks here.
Oh, wait a minute. One more thing. Hopefully Ohio State has practiced that when somebody hits a line drive kickoff at you, you dodge it.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think that's going to happen again in this game.
You get out of the way.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again in this game. We'll see. We'll see. I think Dan Lanning's going to have something for Ohio State, but I don't think it's going to be that. You can't go back to the same. Can't go back to the same well twice, I guess, if you're Dan Lanning. That's Tim May on the other side of your screen. He's a 41-year vet. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. We're having a great time talking about Ohio State, Oregon in the Rose Bowl. We're going to head out to Pasadena, though, so we're not going to give any picks on this show. We're not going to even pick the other college ball playoff games. We will do that when we're out in sunny Southern California, so stay tuned for those picks. Make sure you like the video below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll be notified anytime we go live and when we have videos here at lettermenrow.com. It's Ohio State and Oregon. It's the Rose Bowl. It's the college ball playoff quarterfinal. It doesn't get any better than this, except for if the Buckeyes win. Then it might get better than this if you're watching this video because you're an Ohio State fan. We will talk to you again on Friday in the aftermath of Ohio State's open media period with the Buckeyes defensive players and everything like that. We'll talk to you then. We'll talk to you on Saturday as well. And then we'll get out to Pasadena and talk to you with boots on the ground coverage. That's what we do at Lettermen Row. We follow the Buckeyes anywhere they go.
I got to wear boots. All right.
Yep, you got to wear boots, Tim. Go to lettermenrow.com, get all that coverage. We'll see you guys over there at lettermenrow.com. We'll see you guys in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and then we'll see you on Wednesday at the Rose Bowl.